Today we'll discuss a very important topic in economics, which is the price system and the demand function, right? So the price system basically depends on a very fundamental concept of a market. So what is a market? When people come together for the purpose of trade, we have a market. So market can be a physical market like a superstore, or it can be a virtual market like Amazon. So anywhere where buyers and sellers meet, that place is called a market. Where they come for interaction, where they come for buying and selling, that place is called a market. It is not physically present, but rather describes the process through which fairly similar products are bought and sold. So it's just a philosophical concept where the interaction between buyers and sellers takes place. It doesn't have to be necessarily a physical store or a physical space. It can be an online place. It can be, anywhere where buyers and sellers come and interact with each other and do their trade. We also have sub-markets, which are different categories of similar products have different sub-markets. For example, uh, there's a big market for milk, but within that market, there is a separate sub-market for loose milk. There is a separate sub-market for packaged milk. So we need to differentiate between the two sub-markets. Now, demand, very important concept in economics. What is demand? It is the quantities of products that purchasers are willing and able to buy at various prices per period of time, keeping other things constant. So it's a relationship between price and quantity, and price is the independent variable and quantity is the dependent variable. So we basically measure what will happen to the quantity demanded if price falls generally, and obviously it increases whenever price of a price per unit of a good would decline, its quantity would increase. No question asked. These are important concepts. Quantity, which is a numerical value. Product can be a good or a service being traded. Purchasers include buyers and consumers. Now, they need to be willing. All right. So anybody who's part of demand is at least should be at least willing to buy the product. Right. He or she needs to have the willingness and ability. Willingness and ability both. So they are willing to buy a product and they are able to buy that product as well. So if let's say I want a Mercedes, I have the willingness, but I do not have the ability, then I would not be part of the demand curve of Mercedes. But if I am willing to buy a Mercedes and I also have the ability to buy a Mercedes, then I would be part of the demand for that car. Right? So willingness and ability both are very important at various prices per period of time. And this is very important again, other things held constant. So when we measure the relationship between price and quantity, we assume that other things are held constant. Otherwise, the demand curve will shift. So we'll see the factors that cause shift in the demand curve in future as well. You can see here in this relationship, it's a direct relationship. It's an inverse relationship between price and quantity. As price decreases, so the quantity increases or decreases. So as price decreases, the quantity increases. This is very logical. We'll buy more if the price declines, right? So it's an inverse relationship. It's a continuous relationship. Change in price leads to change in quantity demanded along the curve. It's a causal relationship, meaning the fall in price causes the quantity demanded to increase. It's not a spurious relationship, all right? Linear can be non-linear. Continuous, this means that the graph is not broken at any point. It's a continuous graph. And it's a time-based relationship. This calculation is done within a time frame, let's say over a period of 1 year or 2 year or 3 year, whatever, but it needs to have a time frame. Some people are willing to pay more than others, which brings the concept of consumer surplus. So let's discuss this concept very quickly. Actually, consumers are willing to pay much more for certain amount of goods, but due to the market equilibrium price, they end up paying a less average price. Therefore, we have a consumer surplus. Consumers are willing to pay more for all but the last unit they buy. So the difference between total value they place on all units consumed and actual payments is the consumer surplus. Now you can see here in this curve, for the very first unit, the consumer is willing to pay a price as high as A, and then it would decline. But due to equilibrium, he is paying the price P naught. So the triangle E naught P naught A is the consumer surplus, meaning consumer was willing to pay much higher prices for the first, second, third, and initial units, but actually he paid an average price of P naught. So actually he made a saving. That saving is called a consumer surplus. For example, you go to a market to buy Pepsi. Uh, the first bottle of Pepsi is very, very valuable for you because you're very thirsty. You might be willing to pay 100 for that. The second, you might pay 80 for that because your thirst would decline. And the third, you might pay 60 because your thirst would decline further. But the market is selling you Pepsi at an average price of 60. So you buy three Pepsi bottles for 180 rupees, whereas you were willing to pay 100 plus 80 plus 60. You were willing to pay 240. You were willing to pay 240. You actually paid 180. So the difference 60 is your consumer surplus. Because you are willing to pay more, you actually paid less. The difference between the two is called the consumer surplus. Right? It changes with price, obviously. Now we'll do the shifts in demand curve in the next session. Today the class would end here.